Okay, so here we are, part two, after the introduction with perfect competition. This video is going to deal with the side-by-side graph, and we are going to do some supply and demand changes and see how those changes affect the firm. So we begin with kind of a recap of the first video, namely the characteristics of perfect competition. That's what you see on your screen right here. You can pause the video if you wish to jot this down, or I will have on my website a printable version of this document, either way. So let's go ahead and take a look at the graphs. We're going to be dealing with side-by-side graphs. On one side we have the market, on the other side we have the firm. When you draw the four competition types: perfect competition, monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition. This is the only one of the four market structure types in which you'll be doing a side-by-side graph. So this is unique to perfect competition. I want you to take note of a couple things here. First of all, on the market side, you have your traditional supply and demand. Establish your equilibrium price and your equilibrium quantity as we did in earlier units. However, this time, you're going to take the market price, in this case $5, and you're going to carry it over to another XY axis that will represent for us the firm, an individual firm. Now, what we need to realize is that this firm is one of many, 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 many other firms that produce an identical product. So if you take a look at the supply curve on the market side, this supply curve represents tons and tons of firms, thousands of firms perhaps. Whereas on the right side of our side-by-side graph, this firm represents just one. So if you take a look at the quantities, we have 1 million units produced by the market. This one firm can only produce 100. So it's a very, very small percent of the larger market. Now, the firm is a price taker. They must accept the price of the market. We went over that in the introduction. If you don't remember the reasons as to why the firm is a price taker, go back and rewatch the introductory video that explains this idea. Keep in mind that the firm, being a price taker, can sell any quantity that it can produce at the market price. So if this firm could produce, say, 200 units, put a little line here, this little blue line, let's say that represents maximum production level. They can sell all 200 units at $5 each. So it's one price across the board. What that means is the demand for this firm's product is the price. It is also the marginal revenue for the firm. If you were to calculate the total revenue of all quantities for the firm, $5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, price times quantity, and we did that across the board, and then you calculated marginal revenue, you would realize that marginal revenue is the price. Hence, for the firm, marginal revenue equals the firm's demand curve. Perfectly elastic. Okay. Just because the firm can make, in this case, 200 units, doesn't mean that that's what it wants to do. It wants to maximize profit, MR equals MC. So what we want to do is we want to identify the profit maximizing price and quantity. The price is the MR, determined by the market, $5, there's your price. The quantity is the profit max rule, MR equals MC. So we identify the MR and the MC, where they come together, boom. This firm wants to produce 100 units. That is profit max. If they made 99 units, they're not making maximum profit. If they make 101 units, they're not maximizing profit. They need to be at 100. Therefore, this firm is going to produce 100 units. It is the only decision-making possibility for the perfectly competitive firm. They can only choose quantities. They have no power over price. All right, so that being said, let's go to the next screen. Boom. All right, same graph as we saw before. here we go. All we're going to do here is we're going to take some old ideas and we are going to find out what those old ideas do to the new ideas, namely the firm. Specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to shift some curves. So let's say, for example, that this product is corn, and corn suddenly becomes popular. Everybody wants corn. Well, ultimately, what that means in the market is that the demand for corn is going to go up, and we wind up with a D1, D2. We have a rightward shift of the demand curve. We've studied that. We're going to have a new equilibrium right there, a new equilibrium quantity, Q2, and we're going to have a new equilibrium price, as you see here. Okay, so that's just assessing an increase in demand for this product in the entire market. What we have to realize is how this carries over to the firm is that because we have a new market price, we're going to have a new marginal revenue on the firm side. You see marginal revenue goes up. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means we have a new profit maximizing quantity. Remember, the firm is always going to produce where MR equals MC. So because of an increase in demand in the market, the result is the individual firm is going to produce a higher quantity. So we see the effect of an increase in demand on the firm's output level. All right, now let's take a look at what happens if there's a supply change. And again, I mean, we just saw an increase in demand and how it affects the firm. We could do the same thing, take demand and do the same thing, but have a decrease in demand. So I could draw the demand line going down. We have a new equilibrium, changes the market price, MR goes down, quantities for the firm decrease. So let's take a quick look at a supply. Let's say that there's an interruption in the supply. Go back to the old determinants for supply. One of those determinants kick in and supply decreases. Supply goes down or shifts left. So we now have a new supply curve. Again, go through the same old stuff we used to go through. We have a new equilibrium quantity. So we have a Q2 here. Boom. We have a new equilibrium price. So we have a P2 here. That means that the market price is going to affect the firm by setting a new market price that the firm must abide by because the firm is a price taker. So marginal revenue rises, the firm's quantity of output would increase as a result, and this is the resulting situation of a decrease in supply in the marketplace. Again, we could redo the whole situation and show an increase in supply and a new equilibrium. We can go in the other direction. I think you get the point by this time. So the old ideas of shifting equilibriums on the supply and demand, you now see the effect on marginal revenue on the firm side. The next video in this series is going to add the average total cost curve to the firm side, and we're going to see how that affects the firm's profit levels. Zero profit, positive profit, negative profit, or ultimately shutdown. That'll be our next step. Making sure you have a solid grasp of how supply and demand changes in the market affect the firm's marginal revenue and price is absolutely mandatory to understand the next video series. So if necessary, rewind the video and rewatch it to make sure you understand how curve shifts affect the firm. When you're ready, go on to part 3.